We're going to call to order and have the roll call of the meeting of the Woodland Park Planning Commission this 23rd day of May. And I'd like you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll do that to start off. How we do? Oh, you got to call first.
Thank you. Sorry. Mr. DeVoe?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Ms. Mattingly?
Here.
Ms. Probst?
Here.
Mr. Rollinger?
Present.
Mr. Schrader?
Here.
And Mr. Vogel?
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum this evening with 7 members present.
Now we'll try the pledge of allegiance. First thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, previous meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We will now read the case that's before us for tonight. And it's case ZON 13-001. The rezoning of Southwest Valley Annexation Plat 1 and Plat 2 containing parcels 1, 2, 3, A and B. Request for the city's review and approval of a rezoning from Teller County zoning districts of industrial and agriculture to the City of Woodland Park zoning district of community commercial, located in the northwest quarter of Section 25, Township 12 South, Range 69, west of the 6th Principal Meridian in Teller County, Colorado, more specifically 1000 and 1050 County Road 231, which is known as Southwest Street, Woodland Park, Colorado, as requested by the applicant Jay Baker. Okay, and now we'll go to Sally.
Thank you, Mr. DeVoe. The first thing I'd like to do is just to do a quick review of what to expect this evening so that the Planning Commission and the audience is fully versed. We will begin with our staff presentation and then move to the applicant's presentation. During those two presentations, the Planning Commission is welcome to ask questions after we complete our PowerPoints for clarifications. Then the chair will open the public comment portion. That will give an opportunity for the folks who are here this evening and who have signed up to speak or would like to speak during the public comment to be able to approach the podium, state your name and your address, and then share with the commissioners the information that you would like to make public. The chair, Mr. DeVoe, will close the public comment once everyone has had an opportunity to speak, and then the applicant will have a chance to come back to the podium for their rebuttal to the comments and any issues that may have been brought up. Planning Commission will ask their final questions of the staff or the applicant, and then once you believe you have enough information through the testimony, then you're able to go into your deliberation portion of the meeting. During deliberations, you're able to express your opinions and your findings of the hearing, and then when it seems as if there is somewhat of a consensus, someone can make a motion to either approve or deny the case, and then wait for a second. Once a motion is made with a first and a second, then you have an opportunity to talk about that motion one last time, and then be able to have a roll call. So that's a brief overview of what to expect this evening, And I would like to now turn it over to our city attorney, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, Chairman DeVoe and members of the Planning Commission for it's a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight to be participating and answering any questions that might come up. I have talked with Sally and I've talked some with the chairman, and I've been asked to discuss the step on the outline that is step number 8, and that is your deliberation process and you're getting to a decision. And to give you a little bit of an overview on and some guidance on exactly how you get to that decision. This is a zoning matter, and it may have been a while since you've had one in front of you, but a zoning matter is a decision on zoning the property based on the criteria that are contained in the staff report and the evidence that you've heard tonight. So I would ask that you turn to page 3 of your staff report. And you'll see on page 3 of the staff report at the bottom, there is a number 1. There's a heading in bold face called analysis, and then under that there's a number 1, which is the first criteria. Is the proposed zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan map? That's the first criteria. The second criteria is on page 4 at the top. Is the proposed zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan goals and objectives? The third criteria is stated in about the middle of the page. Does the city have the ability to serve the various community commercial uses with the city's planned water resources? And then the fourth criteria, again near the middle of the page, page 4, does the city have the ability to serve the various community commercial uses with wastewater services and treatment capacity? So those are what the law imposes as the criteria against which you judge this application. The evidence and findings of the staff, which are contained in the staff report under the analysis set out under each criteria, and the additional evidence that you'll hear tonight from anybody who presents at the podium. The applicant will present evidence, anyone from the public will be presenting evidence. And then you have the opportunity to weigh that evidence. The evidence you hear tonight from the podium may support a finding that these criteria have been met. They may bolster staff's analysis, because staff tells you in this staff report that they believe that these criteria have been met. There may be other evidence that you hear tonight that bolsters your belief that these criteria have been met. On the other hand, you may hear evidence tonight that's at odds with a finding that these criteria have been met. And it's your job to weigh that evidence and come to a conclusion yourself on each of those 4 criteria, whether they've been met. And it's your personal determination that is discussed during the deliberation. What evidence did I hear that made me believe that criteria number 1 was met? What evidence did I hear that made me believe that criteria number 1 hasn't been met? And it's that back and forth that you are free to engage in arriving at some feeling for whether or not those 4 criteria have been met, and whether or not you then can get to a motion. There is a suggested motion set out in the staff report, and that may be the motion that the motion maker is comfortable with making. That motion states that the zoning should move forward based on the findings in the staff report, and the motion maker may agree with that and may be able to make that motion. They may be able to say, in addition to the staff report, I find that there's additional evidence that I heard that supports these findings. So that motion maker has the freedom to make that motion based on what's been recommended or to deviate from that recommendation. I'd be happy to take any questions on that deliberation process. It's what you're used to doing. I've just probably, it's, you know, I think it's really important to put it in context, that it's not just a free-for-all during the deliberation process. It's a discussion of the evidence you've heard and stacking it and weighing it and seeing whether or not it supports those four criteria. So again, that is the process that you're used to. That's a process that you use all the time. I've just kind of broken it down and reiterate it for everybody's benefit here tonight. Okay. The other thing that, and so if there are no questions on that, I'd like to move on to my next topic. Commissioner Vollinger.
Could you address the issue of differentiating between evidence and what you might call hearsay?
Well, everything in this administrative hearing you are free to consider it. The rules that govern this administrative hearing are not so tight that you need to worry about that distinction. What you get to do is, if in your mind what you're hearing doesn't seem like it's straight from the speaker at the podium, you get to weigh that. You get to say, well, you know, yes, I'm hearing that, but it's something that somebody's telling me that somebody else said. So, you know, you get to weigh that.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. Let me move on to the next topic as sort of an introductory and procedural matter, and that is to describe for the Planning Commission something that you already know, and so this is just a reminder for you, but again, it's also, I think, helpful for the viewing audience, and that is that what you are acting as tonight are judges. So the Planning Commission is acting in its quasi-judicial capacity, meaning that you're here to make a decision based on the record before you tonight. So your decision is not to be based on anything that happened prior to tonight, except, of course, for your having read the packet. You've read the packet prior to tonight, but that's part of that's considered part of the proceedings tonight. What you're not supposed to make your decision based on is some conversation that you may have had with someone prior to tonight's hearing on this case. And so it's important to make sure that if you've had such a conversation, which again is not a fatal flaw to the process, but if you've had such a conversation, that conversation is made part of this record tonight. And so what I will do is I will poll each commissioner, and I will, for instance, I will start with the chairman. Mr. Chairman, have you had any conversation with any person about this case prior to tonight's hearing?
No, I have not.
And that then we have on the record the fact that the chairman has not had any prior conversation. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to do that with every member of the board. Sure. Again, if you have had a conversation, it's not a fatal flaw. This is the opportunity to put that conversation into the record so that all present, applicant and all the public that are here tonight to hear this case, and your fellow members of the board get to hear that, and then that becomes part of the record for tonight. And so then, Commissioner Watson, let me ask you, have you had a conversation about this case prior to tonight's hearing?
I have not.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mattingly, the same question?
No, I have not.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Probst?
No, I have not.
Thank you. Commissioner Rollinger?
I have not.
Commissioner Schroeder?
I have not. I did drive by the site to get a perspective of where this is. I'm vaguely familiar with that part of town, but other than that, I have had no other input or output.
Thank you. And Commissioner Vogel?
I have not.
Thank you. In addition, because you are sitting as judges and the expectation is that you have come in as a blank slate, wholly objective and ready to make your decision, not based on anything other than what you hear tonight, and with no bias in place. For the record tonight, and the chairman and I have discussed this, I will now poll each commissioner and ask if you can make your decision, make an objective decision based on the evidence in front of you, excluding and discounting all other, and we know you haven't had any conversations, but in discounting all other evidence that you may have been privy to. And so let me start then with you, Chairman DeVoe. Can you make an objective decision tonight based only on the record before you?
I can.
Thank you. And then let me ask you, Commissioner Watson, can you make an objective determination on the matter tonight based only on the record and the evidence before you tonight?
Okay.
Same question then, Commissioner Mattingly?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And Commissioner Probst?
Yes, I can.
Commissioner Rollinger?
Well, certainly.
Thank you. And Commissioner Schrader?
Yes, I can.
And Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It may be that the chair may want to adopt the practice of polling the board on their ex parte conversations and their ability to make an objective decision at future hearings, but I will leave that to the chairman to decide. Are there any final questions that I can answer before we move on with Sally's presentation? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Thank you.
Riley, it is you.
Thank you. We will begin with the zoning map for the city of Woodland Park because, as you know, this is a zoning case and it's important to become oriented toward the site, which is currently, the city council has a petition for annexation for this 1.83 acre tract that is in the southwestern portion of the map and is outlined with the hot pink. Hot pink on our zoning map, like this area just to the north of this site, is known as community commercial. And then you can see there's quite a bit of community commercial also on Highway 24 on the east side of Woodland Park. And we have been studying our zoning regulations and the various uses that are allowed, permitted by right, or as a conditional use in our zoning regulations. And you know that we have 5 levels of commercial zones within Woodland Park. The very lowest level in Woodland Park is not even, well, shown on this map. It's a light pink color. There's a little piece right here. But typically the neighborhood commercial zone is a zone that is between a residential area and a higher intensity zone, or down along Highway 24 in the southern part of Woodland Park where there is no central sewer service and those properties are all on septic. So neighborhood commercial is our least intense. Then the next intensive zone is community commercial. The middle level zone is central business district, shown in light blue. And then the next level is called service commercial, which is this dark purple. There's only a couple of places in town that are service commercial. Those are more intended for a big box, heavy traffic retail type development. And then not shown on this map is the very highest, most intense level of zoning, which is service commercial light industrial. There's only a couple of places in Woodland Park, north on 67 where the Tamarack Tech Park is, and south on Highway 24. There's a small tract that's used by the UPass Sand and Gravel owner. So that's just an overview of the commercial zones located within Woodland Park. And you can see that community commercial is a zone that is likely along the highway. The purple zone I wanted to mention, that's PUD, Planned Unit Development. And those zones can carry a very mixed use of commercial or residential, and you're all familiar with the PUD process since that we recently went through with the Womack Ministries property out on Trout Creek Road. Now to zero in a little bit closer to the subject property on West Street or County Road 231. It contains a total of 5 tracts, a total of 1.83 acres, and Mr. Baker of Teller County Waste has a lease purchase agreement for this site. Should the annexation be approved by City Council or granted, then and the zoning for community commercial be applied, then he will move forward with another step and another set of hearings related to a conditional use permit. The use that is being proposed is for the storage or parking of Mr. Baker's trucks, the storage of empty containers, and then a future recycling center, and also the use of a maintenance facility for his trucks and an office. Those uses are slotted as contractor services within the community commercial zone, and they require a conditional use permit. The recycling center portion of this is slotted in our zoning regulations as a special use and can be located in any zone. However, it does have to receive a special use permit. The office use is a permitted use by right within a community commercial zone. So that's a little bit of background on the process, the overall process. I'm going to jump to our our comprehensive plan map just briefly, and some of you were on the Planning Commission when we adopted this map in 2010, and the property that we're talking about is down in this lower portion of the overall map. As it is located outside the city limits at this point, when we created this overall comprehensive plan map of uses, we made a conscious decision that those properties outside of Woodland Park were going to fall into 2 categories, either as the light yellow, which is a residential, rural residential area, or the kind of lavender color that is noted near the subject property or on the subject property, and that was established as a commercial, a neighborhood commercial zone, but not a true zone. That was purely a starting point for us to then negotiate what is most appropriate for those commercial uses if they were proposed to come into the city. So when the aspirational document of this comprehensive plan was established, we made a conscious decision to identify those properties outside the city limits that were already zoned some level of commercial in Teller County as the least intensive, so that then we could negotiate those properties in the future. We did not want to set the bar high. We wanted to set the bar at a level that we could then move from or negotiate from. So that's the comprehensive plan map. Back to the PowerPoint. This is an aerial of the subject property outlined in yellow, and I just want to point out a few landmarks on this slide. Currently, the property is being used as a industrial site. It is zoned industrial, and this building, the existing building, has been a welding shop for Donnie McCarl, who is here in the audience. And Mr. Baker is proposing to use this building for the maintenance of his vehicles. He currently parks his vehicles in the back of this property, and then to the north, oh, I might mention that the property where the welding shop and future maintenance is owned by Carl Hirschbeck at this point. The McCarls also own the property just to the northeast, and that is zoned in the county A1, agricultural. And there is an existing house on the property. Get my pointer. Oh, there we go. And Mr. Baker is proposing to modify this house and have it become his office or headquarters for the Teller County Waste Services. The recycling portion is going to be in the back of the property. The highway sits up quite a bit higher than the grade of this property in the back or in the front of County Road 231. You'll notice that the surrounding uses, there's vacant property to the north. There's a single family just to the east. That's owned by Jay and Liz Turner. Then there is a intersection of what is known as Main Street, and then there are more single-family homes that are abut Main Street that go toward the south. This property that's labeled 1150, that is vacant land. That is part of the Aspen Valley Ranch. Someday that will be developed either in the county or in the city, depending upon what happens. And then there is a parcel of land that is just to the southwest of the subject property, and that will be, that's owned by CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation. It is leased to Waste Management, and Waste Management uses that property for the storage of empty roll-off containers. Across the highway, there are single-family homes up on the hill, and then this is the contiguous portion of the city boundary. It's on a vacant parcel of land that is zoned for multifamily urban, and then it also has a community commercial zone associated with the Skyline South annexation parcel. So that gives you an idea of the lay of the land around the subject property. In your packet, you received a site plan, and this site plan was prepared by NES. The site plan details landscaped areas, the removal of a driveway and new surfacing that will be included in the yard area. The primary access to this property will be off the lower southwest corner of the property, and the parking for the vehicles will occur up on the terraced level behind the building. And then there is a proposal to build a large retaining wall a block wall 6 feet tall and then berm up against that, and that will start here near the building and travel along this area behind the office and around. Then on top of that block wall will be a 6-foot high fence. I'm just briefly reviewing the proposed improvements and methods for mitigating this property at this point. That, however, is going to be reviewed in great detail should the annexation and the zoning move forward. Then you'll see that in much greater detail at the conditional use, special use hearings in the future. I have several photos that I'd like to share with you. This is the subject property with the welding shop, the double bays. Mr. Baker is proposing to do some improvements to the exterior of this property. One of the primary reasons for annexation is to be able to tie into the city's water and sewer services. Currently, there are septic systems that serve this property and the house. They have to haul their water in and utilize a cistern in order to provide water to this structure. This will be the primary entrance point. This would all be hard surfaced and landscaped and improved should it move forward to the conditional use, special use section. Noted that this is currently zoned industrial in Teller County. We did not believe that it was appropriate to continue that zoning at this stage, primarily because if Mr. Baker were to sell the property or move on, that zoning stays with the land. We wanted to choose the very lowest commercial zone with the least amount of impacts or intensity, and therefore that's why we chose community commercial versus going with the existing zone that Teller County already has. So it's important to remember that the applicant is accepting a down zone to this property from industrial to community commercial. Here are some photos that I took from up on the highway, hiked up on the highway looking toward the northeast. You can see that there were approximately, and I took these photos last Sunday when there was, the trucks were parked in the yard. There's about 8 vehicles there at this time, and then a couple just on the northern edge. And you can see the empty dumpsters that is part of the waste management property that is in Teller County zoned industrial just adjacent to this. Included in the subject property is this small house. I believe it's about 900 square feet. This driveway is proposed to be removed, so that will be revegetated and landscaped. The primary access will be from the front of the maintenance building over to this office space. And then this is another photo that I took looking to the west. This is the side and rear of that property. And I do want to mention here that the Turners, whom you'll be hearing from this evening, live just off this photo to the right. And there is the Turner's home. They are the people, the owners that are immediately adjacent to the subject property. And then this is West Street looking toward the west. Main Street is just off to the south here, off to the left. And this is the Turner's driveway. So I wanted you to have a perspective of their approximate proximity to the site. Then I took a photograph looking south. These are properties on Main Street. They are zoned R1 in Teller County. This house in the upper right is the closest home across West Street to the subject property, and these homes were part of the subdivision that was subdivided Sunny Slope Acres back in the 50s. However, the homes are much newer than the 50s. These photos show the property looking west toward the CDOT property, and I might note that these trailers are proposed to be removed and those areas landscaped. Then looking south over the CDOT property to Aspen Valley Ranch. The last photo I have, I took from just to the east of where Trout Creek Road and the intersection, the signalized intersection is, toward the east to show you West Street. This is the path with which the Teller County Waste will utilize this portion of the road out to the light for their ingress, egress into their site. Just a quick review for the definition of community commercial. This is a land use that's intended to provide location for those types of general retail, office, community services that serve Woodland Park community. And you will be hearing from the applicant about his level of service to Woodland Park and greater Woodland Park area. Community commercial provides a more intense commercial activity than neighborhood commercial designation, but not as intense as service commercial or other land use areas such as industrial or light industrial. And that specific design and buffer requirements must be met for those commercial areas located adjacent to neighborhoods. Going into the findings that Ms. Smith pointed you to in the staff report beginning on page 3, is the proposed zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan map? I mentioned that this is identified as unincorporated Teller County neighborhood commercial. However, that was intended only to be a starting point to discuss commercial levels. Community commercial is not the most intense commercial zone, such as service commercial or light industrial, but a commercial zone that is typically located adjacent to the eastern and western reaches of Highway 24 and the northern segments of Highway 67. Community commercial is usually located along the busy thoroughfares within Woodland Park. Number 2 is the proposed zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan goals and objectives. This use encourages and this zone encourages economic vitality with critical services of solid waste collection for the community and the need for a recycling collection center for environmental sustainability was a very strong goal in our comprehensive plan, both for economic and for environmental sustainability. It provides the opportunity for contractor services to be adjacent to Highway 24, but outside the core part of Woodland Park, outside the central business district. This is consistent with the pattern of existing community commercial in Woodland Park. Number 3, does the city have the ability to serve this property with the city's planned water resources? Yes. Commercial uses are included in the per capita water projections that Woodland Park has planned for these commercial uses, and there is already existing a 10-inch water main that is in West Street that was put in many years ago by the city in order to reach over to Westwood Lakes Water District when the city established an agreement for water with Westwood Lakes Water District. Number 4, does the city have the ability to serve the city's serve this property with the city's wastewater services and treatment capacity? Yes. The Utilities Department is planning an expansion of the wastewater treatment plant in the next 2 to 5 years. That was anticipated with the growth that we've experienced over the last decade or two, and that we are planning to serve a population of 14,100. That is with the wastewater treatment facility. There is also an 8-inch sewer line that exists in West Street, so Mr. Baker would be able to tap into both the water and the sewer lines to be able to serve the office and the maintenance building. Lastly, I wanted to note that when we do rezonings, we also usually ask the question, what has changed in the neighborhood that might cause us to support or need to rezone property? That does not apply to this case because this is property that is currently outside the city limits, so it is establishing its own beginning of its zoning as community commercial. And that the city's site development standards, as I mentioned, will be reviewed in great detail during the conditional use and the special use process. Those will include traffic, drainage, grading, landscaping, tree preservation, lighting, parking, architectural design, and other operational considerations for this property. Your focus this evening is to determine whether you believe community commercial zone is appropriate at this location. And staff does have a recommendation to approve the ordinance. I do have an ordinance number for the ordinance. Now it's 11989. And based upon the findings in the staff report, to rezone the property from Teller County's zoning districts of industrial and agriculture to the City of Woodland Park Zone District of community commercial. That concludes my PowerPoint. I'm happy to answer questions, and then I will introduce the applicants and their team. Any questions at this point?
Very, very small point, but I think for the record, we ought to know whether we're talking about 1.84 acres as discussed on attachment B, or whether it's 1.83 acres as mentioned in the introduction of the staff memo.
The hundredth of an acre isn't going to matter a whole lot, so
Not important then.
not
right?
important,
Okay.
no.
So we could just round it to 1.8, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Essentially? Okay, thank you.
that would be fine.
Sal,
Yes,
on the wastewater,
yes.
what about the interim? Start expansion in 2 to 5 years. I assume that means that right now, between now and then, we have sufficient.
We do, yes, yes. Our utilities department, Kip Wiley and his predecessor, Jim Schultz, they've been working on this expansion and planning it for quite some time. They've done the first stage of their capital improvement program, and they'll be proceeding. They're right on target for that.
Second question, perhaps just for my edification, where does Teller County play in all this? I mean, they're losing something.
Yes.
Do you guys negotiate with those folks? How does that work?
As part of the annexation process, Teller County has the opportunity to comment on that. Those comments then are shared with City Council, and yes, we do negotiate with them on this. Sometimes they have also made some comments. They'll make comments on the site plan if it gets to that point, because we want to be sensitive to the county residents that are in this neighborhood.
Thank you.
I have a question, and Madam Attorney, if this is not appropriate at this time, please tell me, and I'll defer it till that time, but I'd like to go ahead and ask it. We're looking at three things here. We're looking at annexation, which is not part of this hearing. We're looking at zoning, which is part of this hearing, but there's also a statement on page 4 of the staff report regarding conditional use permit, SUP. What are the implications of zoning this community commercial, but then having problems with the conditional use permit and that type thing? Are these intertwined, or are those very separate issues? I'm confused about that.
I think that's a great question, and the zoning, I believe, you can review tonight based on the staff report and the evidence in front of you. The implications are, as Ms. Riley pointed out at the very beginning of her presentation, you would be zoning this community commercial, and so if you were to turn to the table of uses in the code, you are then essentially allowing for all time, until the property is later rezoned, all of those uses that are permitted by right to occupy and be located on the parcel. So that's really the implication. And of course you are allowing all of those uses in the table of uses that are allowed under the community commercial zone as a conditional use. You're at least allowing the owner to apply for a conditional use, and then those hearings would be held in accordance with the code.
But technically, we're not backing ourselves into a corner if we zone it community commercial, but then for some reason are not able to approve the conditional use. That's really the point of my question.
Thank you for clarifying. No, you are not. Because the applicant has absolutely no right to conditional use permit based solely on the zone. Yes.
Well, and if the city doesn't approve the annexation, then this is all moot, because it still would be in the county, and whatever we decide tonight for zoning doesn't apply because it's not in the city. Correct?
That's correct.
Correct. And I think it's important to note that the Planning Commission has no input on annexation. That is purely a legislative action by City Council. Planning Commission does have a purview to review rezones or zoning actions. And in order for the annexation and the zoning to move in parallel with one another, your hearing is happening first. So just to clarify the order with which, that's why you're having the hearing tonight, so that now it will catch up next week or 2 weeks from tonight on June 6th. The City Council will take up the issue of the annexation and the first reading of the zoning ordinance. At this point, if I may introduce the applicant and the applicant's team to the commissioners. First of all, I'd like you to recognize Jay Baker. He is the applicant in the audience. And then I'd also like to introduce Donnie McCarl, who is currently and Beth McCarl, who are the owners of the property where it is currently zoned A1 in the county. Is Mr. Hirschbeck here? No? Okay. He's not here. And then Mr. Baker's consultant team include Tim Seibert of NES, and then he has attorney Bill Lewis, who is here. And then Mike Perini is going to begin their presentation. So you're welcome to start. And you know how to
Ford
click.
is on this side.
Right mouse button.
Right.
One second, Mike. Could we have the lights back on, please?
Please.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, commissioners, and members of the public, good evening. I'm Mike Perini. I'm a U.S. Air Force colonel, retired. I live at 1150 Spruce Ridge Lane here in Woodland Park. I run Perini and Associates, which is a full-service public relations and marketing team headquartered here in Woodland Park. I was asked by Teller County Waste to make a short presentation for the group in an effort to provide additional background and facts on this important zoning decision for our community. I will briefly cover these 4 areas. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the history and Teller County Waste's dedication to local environmental stewardship. But we are fortunate that they serve our community, but other counties and cities have received quality waste programs and services as well. As you deliberate tonight on a zoning decision, we would like to offer 3 additional facts to consider. First, the number of customers of this business in Woodland Park. Second, the overwhelming percentage of support for recycling if all this should go through. And third, as already mentioned by the staff, the tie to the sustainability goals of the city. Your positive zoning decisions tonight and follow-on special use permits and annex approval will allow for the property owner to make improvements. And we believe these will be positive for the local neighbors who are right next to this business, and a demonstration of Teller County Waste's commitment to being a good neighbor, as well as offering a more attractive business for all of us when complete. I know tonight is focused on zoning, but I think it's important to be reminded of the big picture, the value of recycling, and your actions tonight will impact our community in a very positive manner if this goes through. Teller County Waste has spent a lot of time in determining how the recycling will actually work. And these next 2 slides that I will show, and you can read them, will highlight how they plan to run this new part of their business. Finally, we would like to have you be aware of the long-standing and relentless support that Teller County Waste has had to our community.
Mike, could you go back to the last slide?
Sure. I think Sally is just
Backspace on the keyboard.
on the keyboard. Okay. Backspace. Let's see here. Do it. Oh. Yeah, go ahead. That's the other. I think that's the slide you wanted, Mr. Watson.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure. Finally, we would like to have you be aware of the longstanding and relentless support that Teller County Waste has had to our community. And the next several slides showcase this commitment to both our adults and our youth in our community. And we bring these to your attention because in the end, you want the zoning decision tonight to have merit. You want the zoning to work for the community, and you need trust that Teller County Waste will honor it. That the zoning change will be a benefit to all of our citizens and, more importantly, our environment. Teller County Waste has been very supportive, and it's been taking waste from many of our charities and events at no cost, and their record really, Commissioners, speaks for itself. I think a particular notice is the long-standing dedication to our youth. Think about the example you all will be in their minds when you support recycling and the world that they will inherit as a result of your decisions. In summary, we ask that you support the zoning request, a yes decision that will allow Woodland Park to better serve its population with a critically needed recycling facility. Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation? We're going to open up the public comment section of this. We're going to gently try to remind you of the time of trying to keep it to around 5 minutes, and I emphasize gently. Okay. We ask you to give the consideration and respect to everybody, to listen to them as we need to listen to them. If just request that you do this. I'm going to keep our decorum. I have no reason to believe it won't be that way, but we just want to do it in such a way that we exchange as much information in a cordial way as we can. Okay. In the sign-up sheet, we have 12 different sign-ups. In many cases, there are duplicates. I mean, not duplicates, but we have 2 people signed up, Mr. and Mrs. We would hope that you could appoint one of the 2 to be the spokesman. And if you have to remind the other one of something they forgot, you're more than welcome to do that. And we'll just take this along and see how long this takes. And the first name on the list is Jay and Liz Turner. I read that right? Somebody like to come up and talk to us? And if you would please just state your address for the record so we have a tape on names and addresses.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Turner, my husband Jay.
Pull the mic down a little bit so we can all hear you. Thank you.
We live at 962 County Road 231. Lot 7, Block 1 is Sunny Slope Acres. Our property abuts the proposed annexation to the west. Do you have the packet that was provided to you by the city? That packet, I'm Exhibit F in that packet if you'd like to follow along. Jay and I bought that piece of property in 1999.
Ma'am, could I have you speak up a little bit, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
We bought our property in 1999, and we developed our property. We improved our property. We were well aware that there was a M1 zoning 200 feet away. At that time, it was not a transfer station. It was not a waste operated business. It was a landscaping, and that was okay with us. We figured how much trouble could that give us. The Ag 1 piece of property behind me to the west is has a home on it, and in Teller County, if it has a home on it, it is deemed residential. That didn't provide a problem to us either. The issue is the setbacks. Number one is that with Teller County, there is a 200-foot setback. With your annexation proposal, there's 25 feet. We have a problem with that. That, as far as we're concerned, that is a high impact for us. Number two is we're concerned that the City of Woodland Park lacks any expertise in regulating this type of operation. We questioned Sally about that, and we asked her what would we do if there was a problem. And I was kind of amused with her answer. She first she said, "Well, you can contact me," and then the second she says you can contact the part-time code enforcer, and number three she said you could call the police. This is not just a temporary situation. This is a day-to-day operation. It's a day-to-day annoyance, and it's a day-to-day invasion of our privacy. The neighborhood is number three, and the neighborhood has endured Teller County's waste lax operations for the past 13 years. Yeah, I know. Teller County Waste is the same company that will operate the proposed recycling center, and he will also store his vehicles on the proposed annexation of Parcel 1. We fear that his reputation will continue. He's been involved in court actions twice now in the last 13 years. We just feel that he's just not a very good neighbor, and we should know. We've lived next to him for 14 years. Our real estate, we feel that it's going to be reduced significantly in value because of the high impact and not the low impact on the neighborhood. Teller County Waste plans to store trash and related equipment on Parcel 1 of the proposed annexation. Storing loaded trash trucks with wet refuse for several days is unacceptable to us. Other companies involved in this situation, in this type of operation, dispose of their refuse daily. The possibility of refuse being stored for several days before capacity is reached is way too long of a period. We don't feel that a recycling center is necessary for the City of Woodland Park. There's one in Divide. What else do you want to say?
And we're getting close to 5 minutes.
Okay. I said containing wet refuse. Yeah. Did you catch that?
Please repeat.
I'm sorry. I said he plans to store his vehicles on A1 property with wet refuse left in on a daily basis. And that's about it.
Can I add? Or
Sure. Go ahead. But you might want to switch places so we can hear you.
If I were in your situations and having to make a call on too much.
Raise the mic up just a little bit. Hold it if you want to, whatever you want to do.
if I were in your situations and I was trying to make a decision on this, I would be looking for red flags. Something that is detrimental to our neighborhood. It's primarily to Sunny Slope and to Gray Horse. The water systems and drainage, once this is asphalted, will increase. And this water, after it's polluted from drippings and all the sludge, and if you'll notice in your pictures there is evidence of contamination. That water flows down a concrete ditch, and if my culvert plugs up, then it goes through Rob's place, John and Jill's place, and it flows down through Gray Horse. And if it plugs down at Gray Horse, it goes right down Black Bear Trail. And in the previous years, we've seen tremendous amounts of pollution and contamination in that area, and it has resulted in 2 lawsuits. This zoning, we feel, is really it's insufficient. This is not Ben and Jerry's ice cream shop. This is heavy loaded trucks daily coming and going with trash, with refuse, and then it's already 3 days old, and then they want to leave it on the truck until it becomes economically feasible to run it to Colorado Springs. This is a nasty situation. Let's see. The intersection and the traffic in this area is already congested, and the intersection is a bus pickup area for school kids. And bringing in recyclables is only going to add to that. And it's going to be a major burden. The site proposal that we looked at does not control noise or smell, and the drainage I just described. Pollutants will be flowing through these subdivisions. We have wind-blown trash consistently, and there is no containment built into this, with the exception of the fence, and that will stop some of it. But other than that, it's just going to be a free-for-all. The zoning part of this takes it back to where it was before the first lawsuit, when the 2 lots were being used as a trash center. It puts it right in our backyard. It's only 75 or 80 feet away. We feel grieved.
Thank you. Deb and Phil, I'm going to butcher the last name because I can't read it, but come on up. Please state your name.
Hi, it's Phil and Deb Crable. We live at 401 West Valley Drive in Woodland Park. I think why we may applaud the use of this facility for recycling. We used to use the recycling center when they had it in the Walmart parking lot. We now do the recycling and take it to the Divide transfer station. One of the things I do not think you have addressed is the fact that we live on West Valley Drive, and we're saying this is going to be a drop-off for recycling for the residents around the Woodland Park area.
Sally, if I could, where is this property that they live at?
Do you have the initial map available that showed the plat map?
I do have the flat map.
It was on
Are
there.
you off this aerial? Aren't you on the map?
Can you tell by the map behind you?
Close.
How about the map behind you?
About right, here's West Valley, right here. There you go. We're like right here. Just here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see.
So the area we are in is on a county road. It is not a city-maintained road. It is also a dirt road. This dirt road going West Valley Drive is typically used as the Woodland Park bypass for people to get through from the lower part of towards Colorado Springs for people to go to Divide and to go to Cripple Creek. In fact, one day I was in my yard working. A van of older people stopped and said, "Is this the way to Cripple Creek? Because this is the way my GPS told me to go."
Because it is the shortest route.
If you look at the map in an aerial view, you can clearly see that West Valley Drive is the shortest route that avoids the loop that goes up around to Woodland Park. There are also no traffic lights on this dirt road, and traffic tends to go rather quickly down the dirt road, so we have both a speed issue on this road already and a dust issue, for how much dust is raised on this road. If we are talking about the fact that you're not going to increase the traffic, that is one of the only ways, one of three ways, to get to where this proposed recycling center would be.
And so our major concern is that the amount of traffic is, it's already increased on our road, but it's going to increase even further with this.
And then also hearing the concerns from some of the other neighbors. We are on well water as part of Teller County. If we have to worry about the runoff of this water, we have the potential for this runoff water from this to pollute our well water. I think those are our major concerns.
That's our major concerns.
Thank you. Gary and Diane Allen.
My name is Gary Allen. I live at 1098 Main Street, which is directly downhill from the facility, which is right there. And we are at a direct flow if it rains hard. It's my understanding this group will make the recommendation to the mayor and the city council with regards to the annexation of the property in question. I, along with the county, and we have documentation that was not included in your packet from the county, that they question how the method is being done to meet the 1/6 minimum perimeter requirement. I've asked for a total measurement. I have never received it. I would like to see it in writing that this foot, if this is 5,451 feet and 6 inches, that's what we should be told. And then see that.
Can I give you that information real quick?
Yeah, you can just pass that out.
Oh, wait a minute.
Starts this end. To Sally.
I think it's important to note that they do not make a ruling on the annexation. What you are handing out is information that is specific for city council, not for the purview of the planning commission for a zoning request.
Okay, but
And
also.
It's still pertinent.
Mr. Watson made a comment earlier that he wanted to know what the county thought of this whole process. And this answers it, and I will also address that.
And it's much more pertinent than supporting our kids' soccer teams and so forth.
Sure.
See, I think Mr. Schroeder said he visited the site there. You know that this particular site is fairly high. It is pretty much the highest point in this area. I can understand how this facility will only require zoning of community commercial district, which is saying that Teller County Waste is similar to Walgreens, McDonald's, Ent Bank, and other businesses along 25 or 24, as well as businesses like the Baja Communications and a few of the businesses along 67. There's no relevance in what this company does compared to what they do. We were told that because Teller County Waste would have the same restrictions for dumpsters as these facilities, 75 feet. Well, there's a lot more difference between 1 or 2 dumpsters at a Walgreens than there is many dumpsters and several trash trucks with sometimes refuse still in them within less than 75 feet of Jay and Liz's house. Your description for the land use commercial states that specific design buffer requirements must be met for the community commercial areas located adjacent to the neighborhoods. I hardly think the 6-foot fence proposed is going to help any with blocking the noise from the engines when it's idling in the mornings, the smoke and fumes, the air quality, and the smell of both the diesel and the trash.
And we're getting close to 5 minutes, just letting you know.
Okay, I'll read fast then. Furthermore, a fence will not restrict drainage, which can come straight down my house, as I stated before, or otherwise it's going down through Gray Horse and down that way, or straight across down the other roads there. I'm not sure how this design meets the 25-foot rear yard requirement. We were told that the community commercial was the recommendation because it would restrict from it being increased. I propose it's being proposed this way because it couldn't possibly meet the heavier zoning of the 50-foot requirements for the rear footage and everything else. There's my understanding there are no rules and regulations in place at this time to govern such a site. How can you okay something, and how can a person come in and say, well, oh, I didn't know that, you didn't tell us that, so you got to give us time to meet these requirements and so forth. There's also supposed to be an impact study done. I have not seen the impact study. This is one reason why I wonder why you folks are being rushed to make a decision tonight. This property was approved before on a temporary use permit, and I would think surely if it's going to be a permanent use permit that there ought to be some hard studies done about groundwater, soil tests, what's the impact on the community. I don't know how you guys can do this in one evening. I think there really should be some hard studies done. A ski area has to go through years of studies for environmental impact. It looks like at least they would give you guys a month or two to get some facts. The other thing is that we're in the county. We go by state law. State law requires 200-foot buffer zone. Even though I know the city has their community rule, whatever it is, we're in the county, and I think you should consider that. We're still neighbors.
Are you close?
Okay, and just last statement here. Okay, I ask that you'd put yourself in our situation. I think if you do, or if you would, you'd be sitting out here with a list of questions ready to fire away as well. And I just would like to say I wonder if the possibility is that you can table this decision so you have more time to really gather facts.
Thank you.
My name is Diane Allen.
Diane, that was part of the total time.
I would have signed up separately if I would have known that. We did not know. My husband
But
signed
I told
up for
you
us.
that when this started.
But yes, we were. Is that correct, Sally?
Correct. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I will probably be less. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission, like I said, I can address the question answered by Mr. Watson earlier about the county. I have been meeting with various county members about this issue because what hasn't been brought up so far is Liz mentioned about the court dates. Well, there's actually a court case pending against Mr. Baker and Mr. Hirschbeck currently, and that is for violation of the land use regulations for Teller County. As Liz pointed out, it's been 13 years that we've been dealing with this. We're tired of it, and we were ready to shut him down. But instead, he has come to the city and asked to be annexed to avoid this court date, is what we believe. And so that court date's set for November 19th, and it's a 4-day jury trial. It's already set. And yet he has gone to the city and said, I want to be annexed, and I want to give you a recycling plant. But we feel that he's just running away from the county. All in all, to say that I spoke with Cheryl Decker this morning, who is the county administrator, and she and I spoke about this whole situation, and she agreed that I could hand out the information that she and Sally had shared, and I know that Sally met with her on Monday to see if they could come to terms about some of the questions that the county has. And what was found out, as far as Cheryl's concerned, she said we had to agree to disagree because we couldn't come to any agreement. And that's my understanding from Cheryl. And she said I could share this at the meeting tonight because she could not be here. I'll let you read through those points that were offered and decide for yourself. But I just want to reiterate what my husband said. I don't know what the rush is. Sally, and if you go through the packet, you will see some of the questions we've asked as neighbors. And one of them was what studies are being done. And there's a road study that's drainage, and there's also a phase 1 environmental study that was said that will be done. None of that's been done to date. Is that correct, Sally?
It's pending at this point.
It's what does pending mean?
It's underway.
Okay. Do you have any timeline when it could be completed? When any of these three?
It's not relevant to zoning. It is relevant to the conditional use and the site plan review.
Okay. Well, it's relevant to us as neighbors because we're the ones being impacted. And then to address very quickly the analysis, she was talking about the points that you need to consider, those 4 things on the third page. It starts with analysis. Number 1 is the proposed zoning consistent with a comprehensive plan map. It talks about redevelop with low impact with neighborhood commercial use. As you've already heard, we don't feel this is low impact. We think it's very high impact. We are being affected. We've been affected for 13 years. We're done. We just want to be done. And if you look at number 2, it talks about, further down in the paragraph, it talks about the opportunity for contractor services adjacent to U.S. Highway 24, but outside the downtown central business district is consistent with the same pattern of existing community commercial property. Well, earlier, Sally pointed out that all the community commercial property is located next to Highway 24, and it's on heavy traffic areas. Is Highway 231 a heavy traffic area? I think some of the neighbors said, yeah, it's getting to be because of the craziness of the traffic that we're getting, but that is not designed for a heavy traffic area. So again, I want you to consider all these points, and I'm asking that you will vote against this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Perini.
Mr. Chair, I have received permission from a number of our citizens to
You
read
are from
statements. 1150 Spruce Ridge Lane, Woodland
Thank you.
Park. Sorry, sir. I have been asked to read some statements from some of our other citizens in our community. I'll do this very quickly on their behalf. First one is Lieutenant Colonel Chris Inger, U.S. Army retired, 1445 Crestview Way, Woodland Park. As a Woodland Park resident and concerned citizen who helped move local recycling programs forward in the past, I would like to voice my support for Jay Baker and Teller County Waste Services to our community. For several years now, Jay Baker has provided recycling support to residents in the community who use Teller County Waste Service. This has moved countless tons of waste out of our Colorado landfills into single-stream recycling. I applaud Jay's free market solution and his dedication to local environmental stewardship. Jay has also been a solid supporter of our community and our local senior center, Boy Scout troop, and other individuals in need. I hope our city and county leadership will continue to find ways to advocate for positive outcomes for our recycling and waste programs that affect us and our environment. Recycling is an area we need to be common sense role models in and support your youth and generations to come that will inherit the results of our actions or inactions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to understand the relevance of this. If the citizens had something to say, should they not have been here instead of just giving us a message through someone else or presenting the evidence here?
He has his 5 minutes to speak what he wants to speak on.
Larry Mitchell, 980 Char Lane, Woodland Park. To whom it may concern. The email is in regard to annexing Jay Baker's property. I have known and done business with Jay for 12 to 15 years. He has taken waste from my office building, home, and several jobs requiring large roll-off dumpsters. I consider Jay to be a good friend and a very good businessman. I believe he's more than fair with his customers. He's always helped out our community with donations to many different organizations. He's also creating many jobs in this community. I feel this annex would work well for his business and the city. Thank you. Catherine Snickner, Executive Director of Choices, 330 Ponderosa Court, Woodland Park. As a resident of Woodland Park and the Executive Director of Choices, a Teller County nonprofit, I'm dedicated to reducing waste as much as possible. Choices receives significant amounts of donated baby clothes and supplies, including cases of diapers, which create a constant stream of recyclable cardboard boxes. Without a public recycling facility available in Woodland Park, I personally travel to Divide at least once every 2 weeks to dispose of recyclable materials from my home and office. With a local population of a town the size of Woodland Park, it's disappointing that we don't have a recycling facility available for public use within our own community. I'm thrilled to hear that Jay Baker and Teller County Waste has taken this need on and are dedicated to providing Woodland Park with a full array of waste disposal services. Jay Baker has long been dedicated to serving the needs of his community and gives generously to those in need. For several years, Teller County Waste has provided trash service to both Choices locations in Woodland Park and Cripple Creek completely free of charge. In addition, during the recent expansion of the Woodland Park office, Jay's company donated multiple roll-off dumpsters for our use during construction. He has been vital to our success in becoming a financially stable organization that will serve our county for many years to come, and he's backed up his commitment to Woodland Park with action. I wholeheartedly support Jay and his efforts to expand Teller County Waste Services to Woodland Park, and please support this zoning request that will allow Woodland Park to better serve our population with a critically needed recycling facility. And one last letter from Alan Brown, 18401 East Highway 24, Suite 202 in Woodland Park. We have known Jay Baker of Material Management and Teller County Waste in excess of 20 years and have been conducting business with him during that time. And during that time frame, we have had nothing but a very good relationship with him, both professionally and personally. The recycling center that he is wanting to provide to the city of Woodland Park and all of Teller County is needed very badly by the citizens of this community. Please accept this letter of reference and support for the annexation of the Teller County Waste property into the city of Woodland Park. Thank you.
Guy Burgle.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for opportunity to speak to you and tell you how I feel about this. I actually live across the street from the Allens, which is right here.
Your address?
I don't have any.
What's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1063 Main. Although the map says 1065. Got to talk to the county about that. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
My house says 1063. Anyhow, I don't disagree that having a recycling center in Woodland Park is a bad thing. However, as we've determined, there is one in Divide, which is plenty accessible to our citizens. And in fact, the reason that facility is in Divide is because of the surrounding neighbors to the annexation property that we're discussing, the zoning property that we're discussing. The reason it's there is because we've had so much trouble for so many years with the way the trash facilities were being operated there, that the county had Waste Management move and create that new facility in Divide because we were having so much problems at that current site. And Jay Baker and his company stayed there and have continued to, as far as I understand, violate land use regulations according to the county, which is why the lawsuit that's been mentioned is in place. Now, I don't see any reason why, if there needs to be a recycling center there, why that has to be annexed, why it has to be rezoned. Why can't it just stay in the county? What's the issue? I'll let you decide for yourselves. But the issue that we've had for years, I think you need to take into account, and that is the fact that there's been a poor history of following the regulations that were set forth, and the regulations that were set forth for many years by the county were minimal because they were operating under an emergency permit, I believe. But even those minimal restrictions were not being abided by. And then the things that were asked to be done for improvements of the property were never done. So all these things talking about making improvements to the property, hooking up to the sewer, hooking up to water, conditional use, well, whatever it is, permits and things that you're going to require for them to operate under, all that is moot because it's never been abided by for the county in the first place. With the things that Sally mentioned about the zoning, and that's the real issue that you're here to listen to tonight, I really don't understand. Frankly, Sally, I feel that your argument for why to make this community commercial is completely illogical. Because when you think about what you said was, we want to make this community commercial so that in the future, if he moves out of there, we're not creating problems for someone else to come in.
Mr. Burgo?
Excuse me.
She doesn't have a vote. Please address us.
Okay. So what she said was, she wants it to be community commercial in case Mr. Baker leaves, that there's not an issue in the future because it's already zoned at a higher level. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Because if it should be zoned a higher level now, let's zone it a higher level now. And the reality is, if you zone it a higher level now, they can't operate within the space that they have. And they can't have the setbacks that's required from Jay Baker and, Jay and Liz Turner. So it seems silly to me to talk about zoning this now community commercial for some possible future use. It needs to be zoned based on what it's going to be used for now, which is the heavy commercial trucks that are going to be there, the recycling center that's going to be there, and that's all that really matters, in my opinion. I believe recycling is a good idea. This is the wrong solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being on time as well. Tim Siebert.
Mr. Chair, I'm with the applicant, and I'll speak during rebuttal.
Very good. Ron, is it Humor? Am I pronouncing that wrong? I can't read the writing.
Yeah. Live at 1055 Main Street, Woodland Park, since 1971. I live right over there. I haven't got into the whole politics scheme of what's going on here, but I am a concerned citizen. I do absolutely respect the idea of recycling. I'm a superintendent at the Charis Bible College right now. I've worked out of town for probably 20 of my 40-year career. Lived in the same spot with the same wife and have 4 kids that all attend Woodland Park High School and all the grade schools. And very proud to call myself a Woodland Park resident. I am really disappointed that, the property that we're talking about, when I first moved here, was a house. The real estate where Waste Management sits was a concrete plant. And I am a concrete guy, and I work with concrete every day, and I know everybody that's lived around here for years. The property was never developed. But all of a sudden, I started working in Denver, and I come back and find a landscaping company across the road. Good idea. But it sure turned into something extremely the opposite of what I moved to Woodland Park for. I used to get up and just enjoy the clean air, just breathing and smelling the pine trees and the whole, aura of Woodland Park. Really privileged to be working at the Charis Bible College because we still have that there. to get up and smell diesel fumes and just pick up trash out of the trees that blow over to my yard. And unfortunately, my dog got out one day, and I had to chase it across the road behind Jay's house, and I was just flabbergasted by the amount of trash that's just blown into the trees. The odd things that I did find back there, chasing my dog. It was just kind of disappointing. And I don't think that the precautions or however this ever came about to grow into what it is right now, and then where you want to go ahead and annex this into the city of Woodland Park, let alone, I don't know how the county is letting him get by, but talking to my neighbors, it's an illegal turmoil right now. And I think we ought to wait at least till the county makes a decision on this. That just makes sense to me. And I just, I'm all for a recycling center, but we've already had one, and it didn't go over so good down at Walmart. For some reason, it closed up. And I hate to say this, but I think it was financial. And I know just through the experience working in Denver, we talk about 7 miles to go to a recycle center or a disposal area. That's nothing what people have to do in Colorado Springs or Denver or any place else. That's pretty minimal. Plus, it's a nice drive. So, again, I'm just totally against it, and I think you guys ought to really respect what we have to. What we might be looking forward to is having more traffic on the Old West Road, which is now CR 2231, which is just totally out of control. That speed limit on that road is 25, and I see people going 60, 70 miles an hour. And it's just pretty scary, and that is a dangerous intersection right there. Right on a blind curve going into that place. Then we get more traffic going in and coming out. People don't pay attention as it is, and there's a lot of kids that are still around that I fear for. And if I had my young kids, which are not young anymore, I do have grandkids that come up and see me. It's scary, flat scary on that road. So that's 3.5 or 4 minutes of, I can't believe it after 41 years up here. So that's 42 years now. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
All your time. Thank you.
Don and Beth McCarl, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
My name is Don McCarl. I'm associated with this in 3 different addresses in the neighborhood. I live at 350 Ranch Drive. I work at 1050 County Road 231, and I own the little house at 1000 County Road 231, or Southwest Street. I've known Jay Baker for approximately 20 years. I've always found him to be an honest, hardworking man, diligent in taking care of business, whatever business, and that includes requirements that have been put on him through this fiasco with trash in this neighborhood. I suppose the nature of trash says that some of it's going to get away. But I mean, any of you drive up the highway and you see trash along the highway, is that coming out of Jay's trucks, or is people throwing it out their windows? I mean, I see trash bags thrown off the side of the road everywhere that I go, not just in Teller County, but wherever you go, you find trash everywhere. That's not to say that it's coming out of a certain person's trash truck. On the issue of the recycle at Walmart, we all know, some of us know, that Jay and Sally set that up with Walmart way back when. And Jay got tired of the citizens of this community abusing the privilege of a place to drop their recycle until he decided he was going to stop doing that. And Walmart came in and found that after a time that they had to do the same thing. The recycle that's necessary around here, I believe it's going to have to be in a more controlled situation. It was not monitored at Walmart, and people abused it. So I believe Jay's idea of a monitored recycling center is a good idea. The drainage issue that people have talked about, I mean, This drainage was set up by the state when the highway was built up there. It's supposed to be able to handle whatever drainage comes off that highway, off everywhere. Because I work and own that property there, I know what happens when we get these rains, and the ditch actually does handle it. Somebody's culvert backs up, for example, the one at my rental house, it backs up, it goes onto the highway, and then the ditch picks it up and it takes it where it's supposed to go. I don't believe drainage is any issue whatsoever over there. And these trash trucks have been in there for 13 years, so if there's issues, I think that they would have surfaced already, in my opinion. To the specific issues of the Turners on this, I have my own issues with these people. When I bought the house at 1000 Southwest Street, my initial plans were to turn this into an RV storage site. And I communicated with the county on everything that I would have to do that. And as I was inspecting what was potentially a cesspool for a septic system, I talked to Jay Turner. He was curious what we were doing over there, and told him my plans. He thought that would be a great idea. After I closed on the property, within 1 week, I let Jay park one of his trucks on my property. And Paul Clarkson was on the phone to me. He was county code enforcement or whatever his title actually was, I don't know, but he had to respond to this. And they were asking me to, what am I doing with a truck parked on my property? Well, I just told Jay to park a truck there. It's a big empty lot. I mean, I didn't think there was any issue with that. Well, the Turners had complained, and so what my wife and I did is invite them down to our house to discuss what issues there might be with all of this. And in those conversations, all we found was an extreme dislike of, in particular, Liz Turner, but it seemed both the Turners, for Jay Baker. There was no agreement to anything. I cannot park RVs up there. I cannot put construction materials up there. I can't do anything with this property because they will not deal with me. The only thing that they are concerned with is that Mr. Jay Baker cut all the trees down. I think that this is just a personal issue. I don't think it has anything to do with any relevant facts, my opinion. Anyway, to buffer zones and what have you for all the other issues, this has been zoned M1 for this corridor forever. I mean, for a long, long time. Woodland Trash was all the way at the end before the highway was done. The concrete plant was there. The welding shop, well, before it was a welding shop, was a muffler shop that the Books owned, Jim and Jeff Book. And so it's been M1 for a long, long time.
We're getting close.
I understand. I'll get finished up here. Traffic. To the traffic issues, we all know it's the bypass. And Jay's traffic, I don't believe Jay's traffic does not head back into Woodland Park from this site. Jay's traffic always runs out to the highway. The cars that are coming off of Valley and running, or whichever direction they're running in Valley to Colorado Springs and in the afternoons to Divide, that traffic isn't going to change, and I don't think Jay's truck's in there, and they've been running, heavy trucks have been running on this road for a long time. Phil Boswell's trash trucks ran on that road. The concrete trucks ran on that road. Jay's trucks and Waste Management's trucks still run on that road. None of that's going to change. Traffic is not an issue either. Once again, because I'm familiar with this, because I do a lot of work for Jay, because I'm close to his operation and the issues that have been coming from the county, I see how diligent he is in trying to comply with all of the regulations that are put on him. There just seems to be some sort of an agenda here, my opinion.
Thank you. Gary and Georgie Deppen, I have that right? Didn't slaughter that too much, I hope. You may want to pull that microphone down just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay, I'm Georgie Deppen. My husband Gary and I are here tonight. We live at 251 West Valley Drive, right in the middle of the traffic zone. And We are totally against having a trash anything in our neighborhood. We're totally for recycling, and we did take advantage of it when it was at Walmart, and we did witness the fact that people were taking total advantage by leaving their recyclable materials outside the bins, not necessarily because they were full, but just because they were lazy. So we understand what happened there. We don't want that happening in our neighborhood. We don't want this in our neighborhood. There's one 7 miles away that's very successful, that is utilized by the residents of this entire county. On our road, as was attested to by my neighbors, the speed limit is 20 miles an hour. I've yet to spend a week without somebody. It's daily. The speed limit goes anywhere from 45 to 60. I've had Mike Insminger's deputies in my driveway with my permission, and I've told them if they'll stay there, I'll feed them, just to catch people in this speed trap. It's ridiculous. It is a bypass. If I had realized that before we bought the property, we never would have bought it. But we're there and we're going to stay. But the traffic, and I have made no less than 6 phone calls to to Teller County Waste regarding their trucks exceeding the speed limit, literally flying down the road, kicking up dust everywhere, and they don't care. I've been out in my yard, watering my yard, and when they fly by, I've turned my hose on them just to get their attention because they speed, and I've made phone calls and made complaints, and I've been told that they'll look into it, they'll do something about it. Finally, I said, find another route because I'm over it. And there is a bus stop within 200 feet of my front door. And that bus stop, the kids are out there in the morning to catch the bus and in the afternoon when they're let off. And people fly down that road, and it's only a matter of time before somebody gets hurt. We have a neighbor who walks his dogs, and I've seen the man literally fall backward into a barbed wire fence to keep from getting run over. It's ridiculous. And all we need is more high-profile, large vehicles on that road day in and day out. And my biggest question is, what type of an impact study has been done on a 2-lane road? This is a 2-lane road, asphalt, and there's no curbs, and there's no sidewalks. People jog on that road. If we're going to have recycling trucks going in and out and people coming in and out, I mean, what happens when the traffic gets backed up? Maybe I shouldn't complain because maybe everybody from Divide and Florissant will find another route to bypass. But it's ridiculous now. It's only going to get more ridiculous the more use we put in on that road. It's pathetic now. And all of the neighbors on West Valley, Main, Ranch, well, not everybody on Ranch, obviously, but there's just when we consider the traffic issues now, by approving this, you're only going to increase the traffic. And I don't understand how any feasibility study could logically go ahead and grant approval of this. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know Jay Baker. I know his reputation, and it's not one of a stellar neighbor, but I don't personally have anything against Jay Baker. I understand recycling is a big issue. We're all for it. I appreciate your time. I just want you to know our concerns. We are against it in our neighborhood. If somebody on Crestview or Ponderosa really loves recycling, maybe we ought to put it in their neighborhood and see how excited they'd be about it then.
Well, before you leave, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you show me on the map where you live?
Okay. Well, I can't because we are down here. We're in the curve of West Valley. This is West Valley, and it's the bypass between everybody.
Where does West Valley go to?
It actually comes out on, isn't it Laurel Lane.
That's Leonard Bashholtz's shop.
Right, past, you know where Leonard Bashholtz is?
Yes.
Okay. He is on Laurel Lane, and as it comes up to the stop sign, it changes to West Valley.
I've lived here 18 years. I never knew that was a bypass. I promise not to take it.
Oh, well, don't, because I'll turn my hose on you.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, if you speed, I'll turn my hose on you, John, and I don't want to do that.
Fair enough. I'll get the car good and dirty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Boy, you learn stuff here, don't you? My goodness. Kurt Logston. You're up, sir.
I didn't sign to speak, I thought it was a signing sheet.
Present.
Do I have to-
Okay, thank you. That's fine. William Lewis?
I'll be part of the rebuttal team if that's all right.
Dick Lags, am I butchering that? I can't read the writing real well.
I just signed up as you.
Excuse me?
I don't need to say, I just signed up as you.
Okay, fine. Anybody that hasn't signed up here that has not spoken yet that would like to speak? Come up and identify yourself.
My name is Mark Johnson. I live at 1111 Main Street. You can barely see the property here. This corner is a intersection from Main to County Road 231 is a bus stop for Woodland Park High School. I have 2 young daughters, and people here, their son takes the bus. My daughters will be taking the bus. I do not want the traffic from the trucks or the private owned vehicles going through there. During the summer, winter, it doesn't matter. If you have traffic coming down through here, when it gets icy, who knows what's going to happen. So, just to voice my opinion, I do not want this to happen. Thank you.
Question. You're talking about recycling because the trucks have been running there for 10 years.
I'm not talking about recycling. I'm just talking about the traffic. Okay. Because they stand literally right here on this road to wait for the bus.
Okay.
So whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon, it just is not feasible.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Larry Selecki. I live at 450 Bridle.
Wait till you get the microphone. We can't. It's got to go on there for record.
Sure. Thank you.
All right.
I am Larry Selecki. I live at 450 Bridle Drive. May I point it out?
Sure.
Thank you. It actually would be, I think, right here. So just off this map. I have a couple of questions on how the determination was made that it would be zoned as commercial, I guess CC, I guess it is. To me, I'm an engineer by education and training. To me, that classification doesn't fit. It should be light industrial. The type of equipment that's used in that situation is tons upon tons, and I'm not talking about the movable equipment. I'm talking about the sorting equipment, the compactors, things like that. So I don't think that's proper. I have actually am a new business owner in Woodland Park as well, and the area where I'm zoned is in CS, and you know, that is probably, you know, by gross tonnage of equipment that is going to be in that facility, including the movable equipment, it's probably 100-fold of anything that's in the zone that I'm in. Just doesn't make sense to me. So that plus the impact on property values in the neighborhood, the track record of the business owner with the county, and that pending resolution in November, I believe. I think all that needs to be considered at least at a minimum, we should hold off and see what happens there. We don't want a bad neighbor, and this person has, as a business person, a bad track record of doing business that violates code. So I think that needs to be considered. At a minimum, I think that this should be postponed until perhaps next year when we find out what happens with the county. So that's my interest. I don't think it should happen, and I'm glad I learned about this last minute, and I'm here to speak, just to oppose the proposition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Last call. Hearing no more responses, well, we'll close the public comment at this point, and we move on to rebuttal from the applicant. And I believe we have Tim Siebert first.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Tim Seibert with NES Incorporated. We are a land planning and landscape architecture consulting company based in Colorado Springs, Colorado at 508 South Tejon Street. I have been engaged by Teller County Waste to help develop plans and go help them through the community zoning process and annexation that's pending with this proposal. And I'll try through my notes to try and address several of the issues that were raised during public comment, and be happy to answer any questions also that you may have, so please let me know. There's been a lot of discussion about buffers and setbacks and issues relating to how does this use relate to surrounding uses. One of the proposals, and as Mrs. Riley noted, is that we are not here today to kind of talk about specific site plan issues, but we proposed a site plan and presented a site plan because it is a way to have a graphic representation of what's planned. The intent is to create a screen of the outdoor storage area and parking area on the upper terrace, which doesn't exist today. That is intended to have a maximum height of 12 feet, which is approximately the height of the trash service vehicle, to screen it 100%. Between that buffer and the adjoining property, or the Turner's house immediately to the east, is approximately 100 feet, a little over 100 feet of area. Within that 100 feet, there is the existing residential structure that would be converted to an office use. And then you see on that plan kind of a white striped area going up along that area. That's to maintain an existing access to the adjoining property to the north that doesn't have any access. There's an easement on the property and doesn't have any access from Highway 24. It comes through this property. Otherwise, the intent on that site plan is to landscape and berm up against that wall to create a screening. There's also significant grade difference in addition to the screening and berming that's being proposed. That buffering requirement of over 100 feet that's proposed is in excess of the zoning requirements. There was mention of a 200-foot buffer setback required by the state. That buffer requirement in the research that we've conducted is relative to a waste transfer station. This is not a waste transfer station. This is a location for parking of the trash trucks and a recycling processing center, only for collection, not actually processing. So the 200-foot buffer is a Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment requirement for waste transfer stations. It's been expressly communicated from the applicant as well as from the staff to the applicant that this would not is not allowed for waste transfer operations. There is, as you've noted, there is a pending lawsuit relative to actions of what was formerly a waste transfer station on the property. The discussion with Teller County has been subject to that lawsuit. I'm going to let Mr. Lewis speak to that from a legal standpoint on what's happening with that area. Obviously, there is a considerable amount of distrust between maybe the applicant and the surrounding property owners. Obviously, that's evident in the testimony. We believe that annexing into the city of Woodland Park and the stringent requirements that the city has as far as site improvements, management, assurances that get posted. The site is subject to all of those requirements as a part of the annexation, and when we come forward with a special use permit, you will see more specifics on improvements, and the city will be requiring assurances to try and alleviate those concerns about the appearance of the site and the management of the site. There was discussion about loaded trucks parking on the site. There will be, on occasion, trucks that do not have a full load that will be parked overnight on the property. The storage area on the truck is completely sealed. It does not have an opportunity for any potential liquids to leak out of that containment area, and it is the intent to dispose of that as quickly as possible on their load down to Colorado Springs for the transfer needs. As a part of the special use permit and the site plan application, there will be a drainage report that will be conducted. You heard a lot of discussion about drainage concerns tonight and stormwater runoff. We've identified preliminarily on the site plan there's an existing inlet on the upper area that discharges adjacent to the building, which will become the maintenance shop, and a potential proposed detention area. We are looking at specific conditions both on the top side where the stormwater runoff would come into the inlet and discharge to make sure that the stormwater is managed properly, meets all the city detention requirements. I'm sure as Planning Commission you've seen those regulations that are in force, and we are required to follow those obligations. And that drainage analysis is underway at this time to try and understand what the runoff is on the site and make sure it's managed appropriately. There has been some discussion about noise from the vehicles, as well as noise from just general operation. In the site location, obviously there's a significant grade for those who may have driven by the site or looked at the pictures that Sally provided this evening. A lot of grade falls between Highway 24, which generates a lot of noise, the terrace on which the parking area is to be located, and the County Road 231 or West Street, that's down below, and so there are a lot of activities. The intent of the 6-foot buffer and the fence is to try and mitigate that somewhat. Obviously, noise travels in different directions, but is really intended to try and address that, along with some additional landscaping and buffering that will occur in the gray area on the site plan.
Getting close to.
Okay. There.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I guess you
Excuse
don't
me?
have plenty of time.
Okay.
Sorry.
There is also was also a significant amount of concern about traffic. The traffic that is on the site today, as far as the commercial vehicles that are on site, there isn't a proposal to increase the number of commercial vehicles on the site. And so additional traffic may be generated by the recycling process or the recycling drop-off center. We are underway with a traffic report to try and identify that. That again is a requirement of the special use permit and the site plan review process, but we have engaged a traffic engineer to analyze the impact of that road and also sight lines and visibility on County Road 231 and the intersecting streets. Obviously, Main Street comes in at a very odd angle, and in 1955 probably didn't have the same kind of engineering standards. Trying to understand how visibility at that intersection and the corner and the curve is also part of the analysis that's being undertaken. Let's see. We are also doing a Phase 1 environmental analysis on the property as requested by the city staff, and that will be submitted for review, as well as an analysis of the structural capacity of County Road 231 to handle the vehicles. As you've heard, the site has the site and the area that's adjoining Highway 231 or County Road 231 at this location has had heavy use traffic on it for a number of years. A concrete truck fully loaded weighs a lot more than a trash truck. A trash truck weighs a lot more than a commercial vehicle, a standard truck, and a lot more than a residential vehicle. But knowing that that use has been there for such a long time in M1, we are working to understand the structural capacity of the road as well to ensure that that impact is fully identified. There's also some discussions about waste management on the site. Obviously, waste management has a large storage yard that does not meet City of Woodland Park standards for screening or buffering. It has a storage yard on there with, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 containers at any given time. On this site, there's a 2,000 square foot area for outdoor storage for those containers. We've identified a maximum of 7, I believe, that can be stored on that site for containment. So again, trying to make sure that the impact of the use is properly mitigated. Let's see. The other concern that we have is there was obviously a move for waste management to move to Divide. The county worked with waste management to do that. The interesting thing about that is that that same offer wasn't extended to Teller County Waste. The property in Divide is owned by Teller County and is leased by Waste Management, and the opportunity from a business standpoint was not extended to Teller County Waste, although that request was made to try and have a fair and equitable treatment of both uses. And so the issues of having good competition within the area, I think, is one that we're trying to make sure that we are truly identifying. There have also been discussion about the bypass concern. Obviously, the bypass is there. We can't do anything about it. It was identified that the trash trucks that are heading out of the site use 231 to access Highway 24 at the existing traffic signal. That operation will continue to be utilized as vehicles, the commercial vehicles, enter and exit the site. Obviously, residential use, one of the things that we're trying to identify in our traffic study is what is the demand, where is that demand coming from, and that'll be of significant interest, obviously, to the neighbors and the public that's here tonight, as well as the city. At this time, I think I'd like to call Mr. Lewis up to address any of the legal concerns or other issues that I haven't addressed this evening.
Good evening, and I'm going to run my own timer too.
Well, you're not on a timer.
Oh, I have plenty of time. Thank you. No.
That isn't an open invitation, though, to talk for an hour.
You're going to let a lawyer, you're going to give a lawyer an open invitation?
No.
Thank you. I want to make 3 points. The first point, let's discuss what this hearing is this evening. Ms. Riley did that for you very well in her opening remarks, but I want to build on that a little bit. You don't have to take my word for it. You have Ms. Smith here, Ms. Riley, and Ms. Parnell. If I say something that they do not agree with, I encourage them to advise you otherwise. So my first point, let's talk about what this is not. This is not to decide whether this property comes into the boundaries of Woodland Park. That will be done by the City Council. That is their job. What this hearing is for you to look at a menu of zoning classifications and decide which one of these will come into the city if City Council annexes. And if City Council does not annex, then the property will remain in Teller County and will remain in the M1 zoning classification. So Ms. Riley essentially presented you with three choices, three intensities of commercial land use: a light intensity, a medium intensity, and a heavy intensity. Right now, in Teller County land use code, M1 is a very intense land use. Ms. Riley did not present you with an equivalent choice for the city of Woodland Park. She presented you with the medium choice. If my client was asking for the proverbial cake and eat it too, not only would he want to be annexed into Woodland, but he'd want to be annexed into Woodland at a zoning classification that is very similar to what he has now, M1. So he's taking a risk by coming down to a medium zone. So that's point number one, what this hearing is and what this hearing is not. It has nothing to do with whether it comes into Woodland. That will be made by City Council. My second point, this is not an attempt to end run this lawsuit by Teller County. Let me explain. Mr. Baker came to me in the fall, I want to say early October. He came to me on the recommendation of Mr. Seibert. He had selected his firm, a very good and established planning firm in Colorado Springs, to help him with Teller County. We would have preferred to seek a special use through Teller County, because if we could do a special use with Teller County, then we could put all of these issues on the table and try to work them out. Try to get the proper buffering, the proper screening, the proper hours of operation. We couldn't do it because Teller County would not engage in a rational land use discussion. And I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I was in El Paso County for 15 years, 15 years in the county attorney's office, 8 as the county attorney. During my 15 years with the county attorney's office, I was counsel to the Board of Adjustment, I was counsel to Planning Commission, I was counsel to the Board of County Commissioners on land use during a high growth period. And for about 9 months in 2007, I ran the Development Services Department. So I know a little bit about working with land planners. And when I can't engage in an intellectual discussion with the land planner as to why something is or is not going to work, then I know something has entered into the discussion. And that something is called politics. And I believe it was Ms. Allen who said it quite well. Oh, I don't have to worry about that. We're going to shut him down. Well, that's what politics does. It picks a side. Teller County picked a side. They would not engage in an analytical, objective discussion about the land use issues associated with this property because politics had entered it. How do I know? I got an email from a former county commissioner that says it in the discovery packet. But Woodland Park would engage in that intellectual give and take discussion about land use issues. So we would have preferred to work with Teller County and not even get into litigation, because if you go down a land use path, you don't simultaneously want to be in a litigation path, because now you're paying a land planner and you're paying engineers and you're paying surveyors, and then on the other side you're paying a lawyer. So you're fighting on two fronts, and that costs a lot of money. And so that's why we're here, to try to get a land use process completed so that we don't have to fight Teller County on the other side, not because we're going to lose. The contrary is true. Teller County's playing fast and loose with the law and with its own code, and I intend to call them on the carpet. So let's talk about the third point, defending my client's reputation against what has been said this evening. And I'm not going to use quotes from people. I'm going to use objective facts. And the objective facts come from Teller County's own records. If any of you have ever been involved in litigation, you know that information has to be exchanged. I received a CD-ROM from Teller County. I printed it out. It is 800 pages. It weighs 9 pounds. It's about 4 inches thick of paper. It takes the same documents and it repeats them over and over again. And it says nothing. And so I call it the Big Book of Nothing. It essentially is Teller County's side of the case. It is going to be very difficult for Teller County to deviate from that story, especially if I can get in front of a jury on the penalty issues, which is a whole other issue, and I don't want to discuss it with. I won't discuss it with you, but I get very passionate about it. So let's talk about what's in and what's not in the Big Book of Nothing. Get my glasses. Worked up now. I'm concerned that Woodland Park is lax in supervising a business like this. Okay, fair enough. Teller County is not good at it either. Let me tell you why. The complaints begin to roll in 2011. So Teller County sends an investigator, a Hilda Ezard. She goes on the property on a trash complaint. Doesn't find trash coming from Mr. Baker's property. She identifies it as coming from the highway. But she makes a recommendation. She says, I suggest this determination should be made by our Teller County staff conducting periodic site visits to the property and documenting our own findings about this matter. Good advice. If you go out to the property once to look for trash, maybe you won't find it. So, if there are complaints about violations, then periodically schedule inspections and go out and see for yourself. Good advice from Ms. Ezard. So you want to know how many periodic inspections there are in the 800-page Big Book of Nothing? There are 0. There are no follow-up inspections. So there's no evidence that trash is coming from my client's property, at least according to the records of Teller County provided to me. It's a day-to-day annoyance. Trucks. Trucks that start at 6:30 in the morning. Big diesel trucks, I admit it. Big diesel trucks. M1 zoning. Parking the trucks there in Teller County is allowed as a use by right. So if you're going to park your trucks, you're going to be able to start them and drive them off and drive them back on. So Jay Baker's not getting shut down. When we're done with the case, I predict that most of his activities on the property will withstand scrutiny. Maybe 1 or 2 will not, and I'm not going to go into that tonight for the obvious reasons. But if he's a day-to-day annoyance because of loud trucks, this lawsuit isn't going to shut him down. And I suspect that is probably the single largest complaint. Because if I were those folks, I wouldn't want to live that close to diesel trucks starting either. I understand where you're coming from. I really do. But I don't like government being used to shut down a business. If government wants to engage in an intellectual give and take discussion about proper planning, I'm all for it. But don't use the coercive process of the court system, especially where you're trying to impose these penalties, when you don't have the evidence to back it up. Storing refuse. Nothing in the 800 pages. Heavy loaded trucks. Nothing in the 800 pages. Blown trash. Nothing in the 800 pages. Contamination of water. Nothing in the 800 pages. Drainage. Nothing in the 800 pages. Many dumpsters on the property. Fair enough. Not compared to waste management right next door, which is in the same M1 zoning classification. Traffic. Traffic problems. Nothing in the 800 pages. In fairness to Teller County, I think they were trying to do the right thing based on the evidence presented to them. But I think politics got in the way, and they had no choice. And that's why this matters here. Here's the irony of this. If Teller County staff had said, we will work with you on the special use, then this would be in front of your cousins, the Teller County Planning Commission, whose members are appointed by the county commissioners, who are these people's representatives. But because Teller County staff didn't, my client chose the annexation path, and the decision is ultimately going to be made by people that they don't elect.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Are you in summation?
I'll wrap it up. It's been a long night. Okay. Speed limits. Nothing about speeding trucks in the 800 pages. But I know Mr. Seibert, and if Jay Baker, if his folks are, if they are speeding in this area, I guarantee it'll be made part of the conditional use and it'll be dealt with. So, in summation, if all these things were going on, I really would have liked to have seen it in the 800 pages of disclosures that have been made, but I haven't. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just real briefly, and we thank everybody for their patience and for the comments from the neighbors tonight. You know, rezoning makes good sense for our community, and the owner, if this goes forward, is willing to take mitigating actions. And they listed their concerns in the staff report. You all have seen that. I think that he's answered just about every one of them that he can. And we do understand where you're all coming from. Nobody wants to live next to an airport. Nobody wants to live next to a nuclear power plant or a trash management facility, but we all want the facilities to be a benefit to all of us. And so we ask that your support for this zoning request go through, and a decision that will move Woodland Park one step closer to having a critically needed recycling facility for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission, I would suggest that we take a break until 9:30, and at that point in time we can come back, finish up with any final questions you have of the applicant or the people that have come here to speak. At that point, after we finish that, then we'll begin our deliberation among ourselves. Anybody have, do I see a pretty much an agreement to do that? Okay. We shall resume this meeting. I hope everybody can stay in case any questions want to be asked at 9:30 sharp. Silence is deafening. You good? At this point in time of this process that we started with, the Planning Commission can ask any questions they want of anybody that's been involved with this hearing at this point. So we'll start off with, in somewhat of an order. Ms. Riley, do you have anything you'd like to comment about what you've done for your presentation or anything to that extent?
Yes, just that I had received an email this afternoon from Vicki McCauley, and I told her I would read this into the record. We are unable to be at the meeting tonight due to work schedule, but we are protesting the rezoning of Southwest Valley Annexation, Plat 1 and 2, containing parcels 1, 2, 3, A and B for the following reasons. We think that both the current and proposed use should have an industrial zone rather than community commercial. We also often see their heavy commercial trucks on our residential roads. Teller County Waste has a history of land use violations at this location. It currently is being sued by Teller County for that. We have no reason to believe that they will suddenly start complying with land use regulations, and their lack of compliance is a great concern. Signed, sincerely, Kurt and Vicki McCauley, who live at 451 West Valley Drive. So they're the neighbors. I did want to mention that Mr. Allen had said that there was no impact report. Of course, that it applies to the annexation statutes, that if a property is 10 acres or more, then an annexation requirement for an impact report is done for the city council. Just wanted to clear that up. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is Mr. Lewis talked about selecting a medium intensity zone. That was very intentional upon the staff's part. If we had gone with a light industrial zone, this would be a permitted use. Therefore, it would not go through a public hearing process and allow for the general public to make comments to the Planning Commission or the City Council. So, and with a conditional use, we're allowed to apply pretty stringent limits on that use in order to address impacts and create mitigation. So we firmly believe that a community commercial zone is appropriate and adequate. It protects the neighbors, and it allows for the business to operate under restrictions and limits.
Does the applicant have any rebuttal on the letter that she wrote into the read into the record?
Of course.
And I'll be really brief. In that 800 pages, there's only one notice of a land use violation to Jay Baker, and it's dated October 12th, 2012. If there are more, I would like to see them. Now, there's one to Carl Hirschbeck from, I want to say, April of 2012, but that's it. So if this property has a history of land use violations, it's sure not in the materials that Teller County provided to me as part of the litigation.
Commission.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
I'm
Marty.
a newbie, so permit me. I'm reading the heavy service commercial versus the community commercial. One of the big things that jumps out at me with the heavy commercial is that it does allow for ingress and egress traffic coming in and out of the property. I've lived in Woodland Park since 1983. I remember when the trash company was over there and the traffic on West Street. people coming in and coming out, the backing in and backing out. And I can understand some of their concerns about the traffic and getting in and out of that property. I'm not into recycling that much, so I'm not familiar with knowing how busy a recycling center is. But I think I have a concern about the traffic that it could potentially have further on a two-lane road such as West. Can you address that?
Well, traffic will be issued as, or addressed and evaluated as part of the conditional use process, and it will be thoroughly studied by a traffic engineer to be able to analyze the capacity of the road and the potential impacts.
But I'm not seeing where under the community commercial that it's addressing traffic. So it's just under
Zoning doesn't address the standards of impacts. Zoning predicts the use.
I think one of the difficult things for us to do is that the conditional use areas, which is what we determine, and then eventually council, because it doesn't stop with us, it still goes on to that, is something that we need to hold off on and just consider the criteria of what we're talking about here today, because that opportunity, if it ever presents itself, depending on where the outcome of all this is, will there be ample opportunity for all those things to be looked at by us and those standards determined, not at this point of the process, is the way I understand that. Anybody else?
Yes, Ms. Riley, to clarify, the changing from M1 to heavy service commercial light industrial district to CC community commercial, this will actually allow, kind of for the public to understand, this will allow the permitted use to be conditioned by what we decide, or we'll be able to basically run that through to where it's going to be more restricted.
A conditional use allows you to place limits on that use to help mitigate potential impacts.
So ultimately, the impacts could, from what the site is now, it will potentially be a much more user, it'll be the end game for the waste management of it will be better, but it will also impact the community possibly less because of the way it's going to look and the way it's going to impact the neighborhood less, because we'll be able to, the city will be able to, because of the permitted use, be able to regulate that.
Because of the conditional
Conditional use, yes.
And we would not be able to do that in the heavy?
No.
It is now. It's currently
Permitted
a
use.
permitted use.
Doesn't even go to council.
Right.
What about service commercial?
Contractor services under service commercial are also conditional use. But service commercial, it's typically a much larger parcel of land. Usually they're large lots for large retail.
So we don't distinguish in terms of intensity? I mean, you could have very intense activity on a small parcel as well as a large parcel, correct?
Yes.
So if it stays like it is in M1 and it doesn't get annexed ultimately by city council, it could potentially be a free-for-all for what it is now, for what people think it is now. I mean, it's
Be up to the county.
it'd be up to the county.
One of the things that we have to consider tonight is that this whole process is based on community commercial. We either have to approve that, as I understand it, or reject that. We can't change it at this point. Okay, we can't say, well, okay, we'll all agree on another one of those. It's got to be this. We either agree to it or we don't. And it still goes on to council whether we agree or not. I was on council enough years to know sometimes it's approved by this body and council doesn't pass it. It's gone the other way as well. This group will say, no, we don't want it, and council passes it too. So it keeps going on anyway. That's the process. Any other questions for the applicant and the people in the audience by this body?
Can I ask one more question? In looking at the map, or the site plan, up towards the top part of it, there's an empty container storage. What are in those containers? Anything?
That empty container storage area is empty roll-off containers. There'd be 7 allowed in that area. They would be used for when a construction site needs a large roll-off dumpster. That's a container. It's the same container that's stored on the adjoining property that Waste Management utilizes
But
today.
they would not be stored full.
Correct. They are
They would be
empty storage.
immediately empty before coming back
Correct.
to the site.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the folks in the audience?
Does the county have any plans for improvement of this site that we know of? So it could continue just as is? It could continue moving forward as is without city council ultimately annexing?
I think it would depend on the lawsuit.
Subject to the lawsuit.
If I don't hear any more questions for the folks out there, then we'll go into our deliberation stage among ourselves of opening this up. And Ms. Smith, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, I would just recall for the commissioners that the evidence that you heard needs to be winnowed down to what is relevant to the 4 criteria, and then consider whether or not what you heard was compelling after you decide if it's relevant, and then you would make a motion based on the findings and the conclusions that you draw from the testimony that you heard based on the applicable criteria.
And the fact that there is a pending lawsuit has no effect on the decision that we make there.
Correct.
So, just
Excuse me, I do have a question. If the city of Willow Park, if we approve zoning, city of Willow Park annexes the property, what's the disposition of Teller County's suit that goes to trial in November? What happens? Does it just fall off the radar?
that'd be a good question
Yeah.
with the audience.
That would be
Mr. Lewis, Counselor?
Well, that's a gray area. And if it is annexed into the city before the trial, then I will file an immediate motion with the court asking for a dismissal of the case on the grounds of mootness. Whether or not the court will grant that, I don't know. Thank you. I think they would, but
If no other questions are for the folks out there, then let's start the deliberation. Who would like to, and remember, we're talking about these 4 items that were raised in what the thing that Sally gave us out here on pages 3 and 4. Who wants to go first?
From the deliberations tonight, I am probably going to be compelled to vote in favor of the motion. I will say, though, when we start deliberating at a later date regarding permitted uses and so forth, I will be very careful to make sure that the interest of the neighbors that have been expressed tonight will be incorporated into what we do at that point in time. And I understand our charge here to look at these 4 items, but I also understand the public input here and how important that is. Fortunately or unfortunately, as it may be, I think these citizens will need to appear again when we start looking at the permitted use. And I expect and anticipate almost identical input from you. And I think that's going to have a big impact at that point in time, assuming that this is annexed into the city. And again, there's no guarantee of that. But where we stand tonight, we're looking at these 4 conditions. And although the public input has been very, very important, I'm not sure that that had a direct impact on these 4 items that we're looking at for approval. But it will definitely have an impact when we look at the permitted use associated with this area. And I think I've said that correctly.
Next. Anybody else?
I agree. I think that based on everything that's presented, and now having my questions answered between the heavy and the commercial, that I think it's in the right place, that it does give us the opportunity, if it's annexed, for it to come back to us and to address your concerns with the drainage, with the traffic, with the noise. If it would go into a different classification, it's a permitted use and we could do nothing if the city council lets it come in to be annexed into the city. If it comes in under this zoning, it allows us as the planning commission to put some strict guidelines as to how this will be done. And I think all of us are very responsible citizens in the community, and I know that I care. I don't have a problem in calling code enforcement if they're not followed to the letter of what we establish. So I would vote in favor of it.
I concur. I think we, the staff report, I don't see any problem with the 4 points. I think we meet that, and I think the neighbors out there will be in good hands if it's annexed. With this group, my short time on the planning commission has taught me that we are, if anything, we are biased toward the neighborhood, and my experience with the city is that they do a good job of enforcing code and making sure everything's right. So I would like to move that we approve the recommendation.
And I would remind the board, as a practical matter, I mean, the evidence that you heard tonight does spill over into an eventual conditional use permit hearing, but remember that you will be hearing that as judges in your quasi-judicial capacity, and that you are not to make judgments in advance of that. So I understand the practical limitations on that legal advice, but it's important to remember you'll be sitting as judges then, and polling yourselves and making sure that you enter that proceeding without a bias and with as much objectivity as you can is going to be very important. So I just remind the commissioners of that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Now, is there any further discussion or options? And I got to get my 2 cents worth in just on something.
Yeah, I did have one.
Okay, pardon?
I'll go after you. I just have one question.
There's been a lot of discussion about recycling, okay? And a lot of questions I have on that will be through, if it ever gets back to us as far as conditional use. But what I know is I know the past. And I know when Walmart was built, recycling was tried out there. in the first company that tried that, after a couple months or other, I don't remember exactly the time frame, there was going to be a $4,700 charge to keep that on. The Boy Scouts were, one of the troops in town was involved to police the area. Well, Mr. Baker stepped up, did it for nothing for about a year, picked all that stuff up, brought nice, clean, fresh, painted disposal containers out there. Okay, then what happened was, after his year, it was time for somebody else to pick it up. Same company came back, and it turned into a disaster. Nothing was picked up, nothing was cleaned, nothing was swept up, and it was done. So we need recycling. Okay, I have questions on traffic out there, but that's not for tonight. That's for another time, and reports and studies and that to be done. Okay, that's just my 2 cents worth that. Mr. Bellinger.
Thank you. Sally, under item 2, we talk about encouraging economic vitality, et cetera. What do you see as the, well, and I'm going to translate economic vitality into money, financial. What do you see as the financial advantages of zoning this property in this manner, assuming that it will ultimately be included in the city?
Sure. It will be assessed at a commercial rate for property taxes, and I did do a quick calculation of that. It's about almost $1,200 a year that the city will see in property taxes. And then the secondary economic is a couple of water taps and sewer taps will be sold. So, and the rates will be paid for the water use and sewer use every month. So the Utilities Enterprise Fund will also glean some benefit from this.
And do you see the recycling side as the primary non-pecuniary advantage? Is that the?
Yes, it's a benefit for the overall community.
And Kip is comfortable with the conclusion in 3?
Yes.
Well, and actually 4, since that's also within his purview. Thank you.
Could I ask one more question about the fire district? Have we heard anything from them?
I spoke with the fire chief last week. He was putting together some comments in writing. We haven't received those yet, but hopefully before the packet goes out next Friday.
Well, if hydrants, if additional hydrants have to be done, that would be at the expense of the applicant.
That's correct. And the fire district will have an opportunity to review the site plan before the conditional use is reviewed.
And we would specify that in the conditional use.
Okay, thank you.
We've had a motion and a second. I would like us to read.
Ready? DeVoe?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Mattingly?
Yes.
Probst?
Yes.
Rollinger?
Aye.
Schrader?
Yes.
And Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And this case moves forward on June 6th. There will be a hearing on the annexation, particularly with the City Council, and then the first reading of the zoning ordinance that was reviewed here tonight will be on that agenda, setting the public hearing, the second public hearing for the annexation and the zoning on June 27th. So that is the upcoming process that we hope that you all will stay engaged with.
I encourage you folks to come back and continue your quest to make sure if this happens, it gets done in a situation that it improves where you're at. Because under what you've had for the last 13 years, all I hear is we have a bypass that's a racetrack, okay, and nobody does anything about it. And that just doesn't make sense for all those times. So, based on that, I would strongly suggest that we do not have the work session tonight because of the hours. Are we in agreement for that?
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
Are we going to have anything else from?
No, nothing from the staff.
Looking for a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Next meeting, June 13th.
13, okay.
Yes, we have flood hazard development and a couple of other things.
Our Lady of Woods. Our Lady of Woods.
The June meeting, we also have
Well, you did too.
the
These are the
Our
two
Lady of
add-ons for
Woods
John.